If you have a pantry stocked with, like just a little bit of salt, absolute zero financial debt, and I don't know, the ability to bite into a perfectly ripe peach in the middle of July, are you fundamentally wealthier than a billionaire?
Well, according to the deeply unorthodox greeting scale we're looking at today, the answer is a definitive yes.
Yeah, it really is. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We are so glad you're here with us. Today, we are putting a specific text under the microscope. You brought us Xuefeng's Life's 24 Treasures, which was translated and edited by Qin Yu back in August 2023.
Right, and it's this short but really profound text that essentially forces us to audit our modern definition of wealth.
Exactly. And the mission today is to break down this rather brutal, almost pass-fail checklist of 24 items. We aren't just looking at what this text considers wealth, but we're unpacking the mechanics of why these specific things theoretically elevate a person above, like emperors and government officials.
The stakes here are absolute. The author sets this incredibly unforgiving threshold. If you possess all 24 treasures, you are a magnate in this world and the most blessed person.
But, and this is a big, if you hold merely half of these treasures, so 12 items, you are explicitly categorized as not affluent.
Exactly. The text just completely strips away traditional metrics. No diversified portfolios, no square footage. It demands this highly specific integration of physical survival, temporal awareness, modern autonomy, deep social connection, and ultimately spiritual actualization.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand this super rigid grading scale, we really have to look at how the author builds this invisible foundation first.
Yeah.
We move from the premise of ultimate wealth to the literal elements required to just enjoy it.
Right. Items 1 through 4 plus 7, 9, 10, and 11.
Yeah, we're talking about sunlight, blue skies, drinking water, clean air, clothes, shelter, and food. It's like the background code of a video game, you know, or the foundation of a house.
You don't even notice them until they glitch or crack.
Exactly. You don't consciously think about your computer's operating system when you're playing a game. You only notice it when the screen goes completely black.
And placing these passive, universally consumed elements at the absolute peak of human wealth, it's fascinating. It attacks the psychological phenomenon of hedonic adaptation.
Hedonic adaptation.
Yeah, our tendency to just get used to the good things we have and constantly hunt for the next dopamine hit. If you define wealth solely by scarcity-like things only a few people can have, maybe a rare sports car, you are trapped in a perpetual deficit.
You're always lacking something.
Right. Xuefeng redefines wealth through absolute necessity and abundance. I mean, clean air and drinking water are the biological prerequisites for every other form of human ambition. Without them, the billionaire and the pauper suffocate in exactly the same way.
That makes perfect sense for massive concepts like the sun and the sky, but then the author throws a total curveball by including salt. Item number 7 is literally just salt.
Yeah, it stands out, doesn't it?
It really does. Just common, everyday salt alongside the infinite expanse of the atmosphere. Now, I get that historically salt was literal currency like it's the root of the word salary, but in a modern context, it's a $2 grocery item, including it feels like a deliberate provocation.
What's fascinating here is how the inclusion of salt bridges the macroscopic universe with microscopic human experience.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, sunlight and blue skies are majestic, right? But they are entirely out of our control. Salt represents the human intervention in nature. It's the refinement of the earth to sustain our biology and enrich our senses.
Because without sodium, our cellular functions literally fail. Our neurological pathways misfire.
Exactly. Philosophically, the text is arguing that true wealth requires a dual awareness. True wealth starts with immense gratitude for both the macroscopic elements we take for granted and the tiny microscopic ones.
You must possess the capacity to stand in awe of a blue sky, while simultaneously holding immense reverence for like a granular pinch of mineral that stops your food from tasting like cardboard.
You need the macrovision and the microvision.
Okay, so once that biological baseline is secured, the text shifts gears entirely. We move from simply surviving the physical elements to how we navigate time and the earth.
Right, security isn't enough. True wealth requires a connection to natural rhythms.
Which brings us to items 5, 6, 8, and 15. Cultivating land, hearing a rooster crow and birds sing, having something to do every day, and enjoying watermelon and peaches in the summer.
It's a very vivid picture.
It is, but I want to push back on this for a second. Is this list romanticizing a purely agrarian, rural lifestyle? I mean, think about you, the listener. If you're living in a high-rise apartment in a massive urban center, you might feel totally alienated by this.
That's a fair point. Not everyone has an acre of land to cultivate.
Right, and their morning alarm is a smartphone, not a rooster. So how are we supposed to interpret watermelon and peaches in summer in a highly urbanized modern context?
Well, if we synthesize these points, it's not actually just about farming. It's an argument about temporal texture.
Temporal texture, I like that.
Yeah, modernity has largely flattened time. With global supply chains, you can buy a peach in a supermarket in the dead of winter. With artificial lighting, you can work until 3 in the morning.
And we treat that like a massive luxury. Like, look at all this power we have.
Right, it feels like power, but the text suggests it is actually a form of poverty. Having watermelon and peaches specifically in the summer, or hearing the rooster crow at dawn, that tethers human psychology to cycles larger than our own manufactured schedules.
So it's the psychology of anticipation. When you can have anything at any time, desire kind of loses its sharpness.
Exactly. The joy of a summer peach is intrinsically linked to the fact that you couldn't have it in February.
The restriction is what creates the value. And having something to do every day with these seasonal markers, it suggests that daily purpose shouldn't be a monotonous, endless grind on a hamster wheel.
It should have a rhythm. You work, but you also experience the dawn, and you also recognize the harvest. You don't need to be a literal farmer to harvest the wealth of this concept.
So cultivating land can be like tending to a single potted plant on a balcony.
Exactly. And hearing the birds can be the deliberate act of opening a window before checking your emails. The wealth here is the conscious choice to sync your internal rhythm with the external world.
Actively resisting the modern impulse to live entirely within a climate-controlled, artificially illuminated bubble.
Precisely.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Because that resistance to the modern bubble makes the next pivot in the text incredibly jarring.
Right. It abruptly bridges ancient ideals with modern practicalities.
Yes. Just as you settle into this timeless rhythm, the author snaps you violently back into the realities of the 21st century. We hit items 16, 18, and 19. Access to a phone and books, a healthy body, and having no debts or owing money to others.
The contrast there is stark.
It's wild. You have the poetry of a singing bird sitting right next to the brutal pragmatism of a zero-balance credit card. I read this as the author acknowledging that you cannot, meditate your way out of systemic societal traps.
That's a great way to frame it. True wealth in the modern age requires mental and financial freedom. Spiritual and seasonal grounding mean very little if your future labor is already owned by someone else.
Which is what debt is.
Exactly. The inclusion of zero debt alongside a healthy body points to a unified theory of autonomy. A healthy body grants you physical autonomy. You move through space without the restriction of illness. Zero debt grants you temporal and societal autonomy.
Because debt is essentially a time machine where you've borrowed against your future self.
Right. When you owe money, your future hours, days, and years are legally indentured to an institution or an individual.
And historically, that was the trap of the very figures the text tells us not to envy. The emperors, the high-ranking officials, even modern billionaires.
Their ledgers might show massive assets, but they're often drowning in complex leverage and unending debts of favor.
They have infinite resources, but zero autonomy. When your future belongs to a creditor, you can't actually be present to enjoy the summer peach or listen to the bird.
Because your mind is always trapped in the future, calculating how to survive the next payment cycle, and that anxiety fundamentally severs your connection to the present moment.
Wow. Yeah, you can't be present if you're panicking about tomorrow.
Exactly. And by pairing financial freedom with access to a phone and books, the text outlines the architecture of modern intellectual freedom. Books represent access to human history across time, while a phone represents instantaneous connection across space.
But when you're stressed and in debt, a phone is just a doom-scrolling device. When you are physically healthy and free from that anxiety, the phone and the book cease to be tools for escapism.
They transform into pure instruments of curiosity and connection.
Which perfectly brings us to the web of human connection. Because mental and financial freedom mean very little in a vacuum, autonomy by yourself is just isolation.
The text naturally progresses from securing the self to sharing that secure life with others.
Yeah, items 12, 13, 14, 17, and 24. And I love how it splits the concept of love into two distinct treasures. Item 12 is having someone who cares for, loves, and helps you. But item 14 is the inverse, Having someone that you care for and remember deeply?
It separates the passive reception of love from the active execution of it. Human psychology requires both inputs and outputs to remain healthy.
Okay, break that down for us. What do you mean by inputs and outputs?
Being the recipient of care provides a profound sense of safety and belonging. It validates your existence. But having a target for your own affection, someone to worry about, to provide for, is what generates meaning.
Right. If you only receive love, you risk becoming narcissistic or emotionally stagnant.
And if you only give love without receiving it, you risk burnout and resentment. The circuitry of human connection has to flow in both directions.
It has to be reciprocal. And the text also covers the intimacy of having one or two intimate friends and the community aspect of regular visits from relatives. But then, I don't really want to talk about this. It drops a concept that completely breaks the mold.
Item 24.
Yes. Right alongside reading books and eating peaches, it lists having plentiful sexual partners. I have to admit, as a reader, seeing that suddenly appear on the same wealth checklist as regular visits from relatives is a little jarring.
It definitely stands out. But if we maintain an impartial, analytical tone and look objectively at the source, the author is observing the human animal in its totality.
Right. It removes all the moralistic filters we usually apply to intimacy.
Exactly. In many philosophical or religious texts, physical desire is compartmentalized, treated as a distraction, or heavily moralized. The Xuefeng elevates it to the status of a fundamental life treasure.
It treats physical, romantic abundance as a biological and emotional harvest, really no different than the cultivation of the land.
By categorizing plentiful physical intimacy alongside emotional confidants and familial visits, the text argues that fully experiencing our physiological capacity for pleasure and connection is a vital currency of wealth.
It's the physical manifestation of the joy, play, and abundance that the earlier environmental treasures hinted at.
It paints a picture of a human being who is fully alive.
Physically satiated, intellectually stimulated, socially secure, and deeply connected to the earth.
Huh.
But, and here is the ultimate twist, even with all of that, the author says we haven't reached the apex.
What remains is the internal spiritual state.
The highest tier, items 20, 21, 22, and 23. We are presented with faith and ideals, life objectives and direction, a heart willing to serve others, and cheerful, optimistic, romantic emotions and sentiments.
This is the ultimate capstone that turns the previous 20 items into actual happiness. These internal states act as the sorting mechanism for everything that came before.
Meaning you can possess a debt-free bank account and a healthy body. But without life objectives or direction, those assets just sit there.
They become a stage with no play being performed. And a heart willing to serve others takes the massive accumulation of the previous 23 treasures and provides an exhaust valve, ensuring the wealth doesn't stagnate into hoarding.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the scoring system? Because this is where I struggle. Let's test the author's premise. The author claims if you have 12 items, you are not affluent.
Right, it's a very strict binary.
So suppose a listener has secured the physical elements, the social connections, and the financial freedom. They have 20 of the items, but they go through a period where they lose their faith and ideals,
Right.
or their optimistic emotions temporarily flatline.
Which happens to everyone.
Exactly. Does the author really believe they are spiritually bankrupt? Is wealth really an all-or-nothing game? It implies a brutal fragility, if you ask me.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the underlying mechanism here is that the internal state isn't just an addition to the list. It is the lens through which every other item is refracted.
Oh, okay, the lens?
Think of it as a mathematical multiplier. If your internal state, your optimism, your ideals, your sense of direction is 0, then multiplying it against $1 million, perfect health, and endless summer fruit still equals 0.
Oh, wow. A multiplier.
Without optimistic and romantic emotions, the peach has no flavor. Without a heart to serve others, your social connections degrade into transactional networking. The external treasures are the fuel, but the internal spiritual state is the spark that creates the combustion.
That perfectly explains why the author insists that having only 12 items means you fail the audit. You cannot half experience true wealth. Having clean air but drowning in debt is a fractured existence. Having infinite money but no one to care for is a hollow reality.
The internal state is the lens through which all the other treasures are enjoyed.
This is just such a phenomenal framework. I mean, we've covered an incredible scope today, from the literal air we breathe to the debts we don't owe, to the friends who visit us and the ideals that guide us.
And the core message is incredibly empowering. If you possess these, do not envy emperors or officials.
Exactly. So we really want to encourage you to do a mental audit today. Count up your own score out of 24.
And acknowledge that even if you fall short of all 24, merely recognizing these items as treasures fundamentally changes how you view your daily life.
It really does. It
Yeah.
transforms an ordinary, seemingly mundane afternoon into an exhibition of staggering affluence. But we want to leave you with one final, lingering question.
Building strictly on the logic of the source text.
Yes, the author gave us exactly 24 treasures that define the ultimate earthly magnate. But human lives are incredibly unique. So if you were forced to append a 25th treasure to this list, one that captures an essential joy or freedom in your specific life that the author missed, what would your 25th treasure be?
Identifying that missing piece is the next logical step in claiming your own autonomy.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep examining the unseen mechanisms of your life, and we will be back soon to explore more incredible sources. Take care.